about this? Should we allow more investors to be able to have the controlling stake, or still you have certain SOEs somewhere belonging to or government institutions rather coming to purchase the shares, and which will still give the controlling stake? Because at the end of the day, who appoints the people who sit on the board of SIC or Senate or the Bank of Ghana? All these appointments is still coming from the government side. So at the end of the day, you will see that the government's hand is still on it, as it should be.
Well, Norvan, it's very simple. When we are putting a company on the stock exchange, we should only own a minority share. We should only own a minority share, and that's very important. Listen, we're too fixated on owning government, owning and running businesses in this country. That's a model that doesn't work. It just allows us to be more and more corrupt by creating more avenues for patronage. Government should take its hands out of most SOEs, ones that are absolutely necessary, and the ones that go on that are privatized. Even if government should own a share, it should be a minority stake.
Okay, so that is Mr. Jackson's point of view. He says that if government needs to own a share, that should be minority stake. Dr. Alex Ampabe, I'm coming back to you on what you also think about this. But then there's a question from my friend Nani, and he writes, I mean, more of a point he wants to make. He says that at the core of Ghana's economic woes is poor public financial management. That's the PFM. We have a PFM Act that is not being respected by the very managers who are supposed to be handling that. All the gaps that have been identified and which we have been discussing over the years are traceable to this. What has been lacking is the lack of political will to see this through. So this issue of PFM has come back again. So Dr. Mpabe, while you try to answer the first one, you come back and help us to understand how we can deal with this as well.
Yes, thanks again, Norvan. That was a very good point the gentleman has raised. Politicians will always find a way to navigate issues around the PFMA. But you see, the PFMA does not really go far enough. For example, an issue of corporate governance that we are talking about on the SOEs, I don't think there's any section in the PFMA which will talk about this. The issue around the PFMA will be interested in the revenues being generated. But the point here that is so crucial to that is that how do we structure those SOEs to be fit for purpose? China undertook a similar thing, and now their SOEs are one of the, if not the best performing in the world. When they did their reform in 1997, they used that popular phrase, grasping the large and letting the small go. So in our situation, we will not say grasping the large and letting the small go. We would just say, let the all SOEs go, or at least let half, more than half go, because we don't seem to have the capacity to do it, or the discipline. The capacity could be there, but the issue of discipline. And clearly, I'll go back to Goyle. If you go back to Goyle, I'm not saying Goyle is a super example, but example of Goyle, while Goyle has been performing and been reporting positive figures throughout, for the last 5 years I checked, averagely, Goyle is reporting net profit, I'm not talking about operating profit, net profit, averagely of about 71, 72 million in the last 5 years. How is Goyle able to do that? Because government don't have the biggest share in Goyle compared to maybe others. If you come to Cocoa Board, all the subsidiaries have been reporting losses every year that Cocoa Board report losses. The last time Cocoa Board had a positive figure, I think was 2015 financial year. Since then, up to date, Cocoa Board has been increasing its bills, and simply because it has to roll over to pay matured ones. And the more you're going to roll over, the more you have to increase the value to make it attractive for new investors. If you think Cocoa Board is for an individual, they will keep making losses and still be constructing roads. They'll be operating at losses and still be supplying fertilizers nationwide. Certain crazy fiscal responsibility to me has to be squashed, and straight away so. Apart from that, I will say as an immediate step, government needs a reform with Cocoa Board. And that reform should come with a deliberate intent to take government control out of Cocoa Board. I know it's very difficult because if you have a cash cow, it's not so easy to let go. But if we really want, we need to start a campaign of the Cocoa Board we want. If we don't get the Cocoa Board, we don't get the politicians to give us the Cocoa Board we want, we will continue to be in this situation. I mean, how can we employ 2,300 people in one organization in a year without seeing any expansion, anything going on? Tell me what changed between 2019 and 2020. What changed in Ghana for Cocoa Board to employ 2,300 people? I'm not talking about 200 people, 2,300 people within 1 year. Was it because, and I'm asking this question for an answer, I'm not prejudging, but the question I am asking is that, did we employ 2,300 people because it was an election year? Or genuinely, Cocoa Board had 2,300 vacancies within that 12 months? If so, where were the adverts placed? How many times did you see Cocoa Board advertising for these huge opportunities for people to apply? It leads us to question the influence of political leaders within the SOEs. So to wrap it up, I would say going forward, we need a proper structure of Cocoa Board, which you start with partly privatizing. And again, I will 100% support Mr. Jackson that we don't need a Cocoa Board that is 51% or 60% owned by government. We want Cocoa Board that is maybe 20% or 15% owned by the government, where the private people allowed to bring their hands in. Because if me and you are shareholders of Cocoa Board, you won't sit down for Cocoa Board to create non-existent 2,300 jobs when you know you have to get dividends. And by the way, GOIL have been paying dividends throughout this period if you check on their financial statements. So we need that kind of massive private control with a minimal state ownership. We need the government to go out, but crucially, in reforming the SOEs, I will suggest one thing. We need to reform SIGA. The whole conversation also sits with SIGA. SIGA is there as a regulator for all the state-owned enterprises. SIGA bosses will come on the TV and the radio and say, no SOE has published financial statement. No. Yet, the SOE bosses are driving the V8, which me and you, our taxes are funding. So it got to the point that SIGA has to be fully restructured. And part of the ownership should be, SIGA should not be something that, again, the politicians appoint people. SIGA should be like PIAC. If you really want a SIGA to work, then we need a PIAC model of SIGA, which has a state interest, and therefore civil society, academia, clergy, the chiefs, come back to form SIGA and then appoint their leadership. I believe if SIGA structure changes and government takes their hand off and live with a minimal share within the SOEs, I believe something will change. But if you don't, the restructuring you will do, maybe luckily we might be able to get somewhere, which is our prayer, because we don't want the economy to sink. But in doing that, we are scaring investors away. We are digging our own grave, and the future definitely looks bleak for us all. Norvan.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much. We'll be wrapping up in the next 5-10 minutes. But let me go to Mr. Jackson right now to get his last comments. But let me read before that, Mr. Jackson. There's this question that has come up. He said, "Where do we draw the line between government involvement for social reasons and the model towards profitability? Can the two work concurrently and effectively?" And this one is coming from Daniel Otu. Mr. Jackson, if you can help us, and then try and wrap up also for us.
Okay, thank you very much. Listen, we shouldn't mix the two. If the government wants a social intervention, it should definitely go ahead. And every government will need social interventions, but it shouldn't use the institutions that should perform, that should produce a profit, that should finance the cocoa industry, etc., to perform social interventions. These institutions should provide the money, and the appropriate institutions who are better constituted to provide social interventions should do it. We shouldn't mix the two. And in summary, if you want to fix the cocoa sector, if you want to fix the financing of cocoa, you've got to first fix Cocoa Board, Cocoa Marketing Company, and all the related companies. You've got to make them work better and privatize them. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jackson. And let me take these messages, and then I will come to Dr. Alex Ampabi to end also today's space for us. But if you just joined us, you may have come too late. But I mean, it's also not late because the recording will be available on our handle. It is pinned over there. That is at Norvan Reports, and you can always go to it. You can also visit the ABC News GH. They have been covering this live on television and also on YouTube. And also to remind you that it is the Norvan Report and the Economics Governance Platform Twitter Space Series. We do this every 2 weeks, where we come and pick a topic and we discuss, try and look at the solutions and how we deal with it. Now, Mike writes, there has been lack of political will in Ghana to make taxes progressive. Example he gives is property tax has not been tackled. Well, property tax, we've seen the GRA try its best to, go around that. And so we are told that very soon they'll be dealing with that together with the district assemblies. Tax avoidance and evasion by multinationals are not also being tackled. Too much tax breaks given to foreign investors too. Tax is killing the middle class and the poor. And so in widening the tax net, I think what Mike wants to say is that if we have to widen the tax net, the tax break that are being given to foreigners must not be allowed. And that's how come he writes. He says, if we widen the tax break by tackling all these issues, we can lower the tax instead of using it to kill productivity in the country. Now, Nee writes again, even with GWEL, if you compare them with other market players like Total, depending on which school you attended, you will realize GWEL is not efficient at all. With the balance sheet of GWEL, it should be generating triple of its current numbers. The government needs to further water down its interest in that entity to allow that. I think that he brings back to bear the real issues of government's so much involvement in these SOEs. And so if we are advocating for Cocoa Board to be put on the market, then the advice is that government may have to step back and hold minority instead of majority. Now, Citizen Yao, right, he says SNIT must not be the focus. Serious Ponzi scheme ongoing there. No, he said SNIT must be the focus. Don't worry, one of these days we will come and discuss SNIT as it is, and what they're using you and I, our monies for, and try to understand, analyzing their financial statements and all the issues. So, Dr. Babi, as we wrap it up tonight, what would you say should be done to Cocoa Board? And like we said, you have clearly stated that funding cocoa bills will be very unattractive to the investor. But what can be done and what should be done in dealing with the situation?
Thanks, Norvan. I think I give quick reaction to the interesting tweet you read there before I wrap up. I like the one that said SNET is a Ponzi scheme. And the issue with SNET is that it's not like COCOBOD that requires money sometimes to front load some responsibilities. So it's kind of difficult to see what is going on behind the scene. And also because people are contributing into the coffers all the time, it's very difficult for things to play out so openly. But definitely it's an area that's worth taking a look at. Yes, the issue about goil too is perfectly the case, and I 100% agree with the gentleman that raised the issue. And like I said, goil is not necessarily the best example, but even when government reduce its stakes to, I think, 36%, at least they are reporting averagely about 60 to 70 million net profit a year. But no matter how bad it is still better than COCOBOD that is dragging us to the IMF. Definitely, government reducing its stake to, and I keep saying government shouldn't own more than 20% in any. If you really want, if you really functioning, hello. Sorry,
We can hear you.
I had a
Please go ahead.
problem.
We can hear you.
Okay, if you really
No,
want a functioning SOE, government don't need more than 20%. I would definitely recommend 15% maximum. And in terms of wrapping up and what needs to be done, I think I raised this in the beginning. The first one is about restructuring of the leadership, of the structure, the corporate structure. We need a structure that would hold leaders accountable. We need a system that will ensure the the CEOs and the senior figures within COCOBOD are employed on meritocracy and not on political lines. We need people with wealth of experience to come and. You don't need somebody who was campaigning the most to come and run COCOBOD for us. We don't need that kind of leads. Going forward, I think we need a system for COCOBOD that will create more opportunity for value addition. Pretty much about 95% or so is exported. That leaves us loss of revenue to waste. And again, the job that we should be creating for our people, the more you are exporting the raw beans, you are actually creating jobs for those countries. So we are rather shipping jobs away. We've been producing cocoa for how many years? Hundreds of years. But just a fraction is being processed by cocoa processing and few other companies. I think COCOBOD should own that space. They were looking for 35 million from China to set up the cocoa processing factory in my own Sehi also. This is money COCOBOD can easily raise. So it is time for COCOBOD to see the longer picture. Number 3, COCOBOD should put immediate stop to the quasi fiscal responsibility or activities. And here I'm referring to cocoa roads. I think government should factor cocoa growing area roads as part of national agenda, because COCOBOD is not in a position to finance roads. If they are, definitely it makes sense. And I don't want to be misquoted, but the point I'm making is that with the current state of COCOBOD for the last 8 years, not made a single profit, to still keep constructing roads, it doesn't really make sense. For them to still keep supplying national fertilizer, which find itself in Burkina and Togo and the rest, it doesn't make sense. Those responsibilities have to be stopped and immediately if you really want to see COCOBOD doing well. Cost rationalization, definitely they need to do a serious internal audit and reforms to assess which areas. And finally, employment within COCOBOD should be transparent. We don't see, none of us could actually say that between 2019, and I'll go back to that year, 2019, 2020, something so overwhelming happened within COCOBOD. There was a massive expansion. I checked their financial statement, it didn't seem to correspond the number of staff they employed. So it kind of makes you believe that there could be a reason rather than COCOBOD expanding that required 2,300 employees. So going forward, I believe if government takes its hand off, if Cocoa Board is structured with a proper functioning board, which is partly private, and those shareholders appoint their own directors, government owning less than 15 or 20%, and Cocoa Board stopping some of those avoidable expenditure, and leadership or employment in Cocoa Board is purely based on meritocracy over political lines, we will see Cocoa Board moving to a more stable fiscal position. Thanks, Norvan.
Thank you very much, Dr. Alex Ampabe. He is an economist and fiscal policy expert, and he's hit the nail right on its head. Cocoa Board, as it is today, is one institution that government must let go if it has to perform and perform well. Employment there should be one that, those individuals should be up for it. Those individuals should be the right people, so we don't end up putting, as they say, square pegs in round holes. I want to say a big thank you also to Professor John Gachi, who also made time with us at the very beginning. He's the Dean of the School of Business at the University of Cape Coast, and we don't take it for granted. Even on his hospital bed, he made time to make his first initial comments with us, and we are so grateful for that. We pray for total healing for him. And then also a big thank you to Mr. Joe Jackson, the Director of Operations at Dealers Finance, who on any day will be available to share his thoughts and where he thinks this economy should be going. And we say a very big thank you to all of you who made time with us this evening. We don't take it for granted. We are grateful to you. Every now and then, you make time to join our discussions and your contributions that you make as well. We are very, 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 very grateful to you for the contributions and the questions that you ask, as we have these spaces. Michael Ampene, Citizen Yao, Niteko, Edwin, Daniel Otu, Nani, and all the others. We are grateful to you for the stimulation discussion that you help us in having. And a big thank you to ABC News GH for the collaboration and ensuring that, the Twitter space is put on television. If you have not scanned your network, please, until we come your way again next 2 weeks, make sure you scan your television so that if you're having challenges with the internet, you can sit behind your television and join us on ABC News GH. We are always live over there from 7 p.m. to 8:30, or sometimes we go a little over to about 9 o'clock. Forgive us when we do that, it depends. And today we want to apologize for the challenges that we've had technically, which really affected us. My name is Norvan Reports, and once again, I want to thank all of you for making time to join us on this Norvan Report Twitter Space event, where we looked at this important topic, that is the DDEP2 and its impact on the cocoa industry in Ghana, and how can we fund cocoa bills going forward. And if you want to join us every morning, Norvan Reports is a news portal. For your information, norvanreports.com, you can always visit there, and you have the news reports, the latest news in the world of business. In the world of business, we report only on business, the economy, finance, and areas that happen. So even if we are reporting on entertainment, it has to do with the entertainment business. If we are reporting on health of business, environment of business, that's what we look at. Norvan Report is a unique data, business, and financial portal aimed at providing you the accurate and impartial reporting of business news in Ghana, Africa, and around the world. And you are pretty sure that we always do this from a truly independent reporting and analysis point of view. It's for this reason that we have these Twitter spaces also to discuss these issues dispassionately, not politically, ensuring that we break it down for you to understand what is happening as far as the economy is concerned. The second round of DDEP is staring at our faces. The government has begun it. You can see what has happened with regards to the cocoa bills. Obviously, the dollar-denominated bonds are being looked at. You and I know that as of today, the individual and pension bond holders are getting ready on Tuesday to start picketing because government has not been able to pay them with all the promises and even the MOU that they signed, hoping that they would have been paid their coupon rates and their principals. But that has not happened. And so it's likely on Tuesday you see them picket at the Ministry of Finance and at other government installations. That's what you see happening. And so if you want to be able to also receive the news bulletins, what you can do is DM us at Norvan Report. I mean, just DM, come into our DM, leave your number there. We'll pick it up and we'll add you to, the list of people that we send news reports to every morning for them to know what are the top business news that is happening around us in this country. We also report on sports, the business of sports, very important. I know that most of us are sports enthusiasts and would want to know. You're sure that when you go to the website, norvanreports.com, you receive all this information. Or you can always follow us on Twitter because we are always tweeting these news reports there as well. My name is Norvan Reports. A big thank you to my team, Fuad, Joseph, and all the other team members. We thank you, and a big thank you to our guys at ABC News GH. Until we come your way again.